I want to take you on a little stroll with kind of what each department will have to face at some time and picking a zero-cost textbook. Some you may have already picked it, but for instance, if you're on the hunt for, say, statistics, zero-cost textbook, you would start hunting it down, and other than just actual content that's accurate and falls kind of in line with your curriculum and how you develop your course, the other big thing we have to make sure we're looking at is accessibility. So I'm going to come from the standpoint of accessibility when hunting down a zero-cost textbook for statistics right now, and I'm just going to scratch the surface. I'm not going to do an exhaustive search by any means, but I want to show you kind of some of the things that can happen, but I am not going to discuss the content of it, whether it's good at content or accurate content in terms of the subject matter material. I'm strictly going to look at this from an accessibility point of view. So right here we have, I just Googled statistics LibreText. Now the LibreText is something I've been seeing in the sciences that they've been using, and the ones I saw were accessible, so it took me straight there. And when you click on this home screen for LibreText, and my understanding is LibreText has been around longer than, like, say, Openstacks. I found this other website, just to give you a little background here, that was talking about how much of the materials from LibreText are so-called textbook maps. They follow the outline of commercially available textbooks but offer different texts and examples. And it includes text from other OER providers such as Openstacks. And so apparently it looks like it's been around longer according to this website. There's more options available, but it's not checked for, say, accuracy and that type of thing. But it's what you can do with the LibreText, and as I've seen done in our science classes, is you're mixing in the book content material with the Canvas pages that you are creating, so you can very much customize your course using LibreText. So if we were to go to, say, the campus bookshelves and click on that, and then it gives a bunch of different colleges. I think I chose Lake Tahoe as one, and then this notice it says Openstacks in it. Now, I'm somewhat familiar with the Openstacks statistics books out there, and so I clicked on this book in LibreText, and then it comes up. This is how they bring out their sections with these clickable squares with the information. But I want to show you, so they integrated the Openstacks in here, but I want to show you something that happens in terms of accessibility. So I went through clicking on the links until I got to the section 6.3 using the normal distribution. And I ran the screen reader through here just to really quick see what was happening. And what happened was this image that's in the middle here of this normal distribution graph was not read. And when I went and did the right-click inspect, so to inspect that source, notice up here on the right, it says it has a source for the image, and that source will just lead you to a picture of the image. In that source file and in this HTML, we see no image description. And so a student using the screen reader would not be able to actually even, if they knew there was even an image there, nothing is being told about the image. So essentially, they're losing this complete image content on this page. But if I were to go up to this link up here on the upper left, sourced from Openstacks, and click that link, that opens up the Openstacks location of that statistics book. So the same content. So I'm now in the Openstacks statistics book, and I'm going to go to that same content. So I've clicked through the table of contents in the Openstacks version of the book. It's actually under 6.2 using the normal distribution. And here I have the same exact image, the same content. But now if I were to look at and inspect that image, if we do the right click and inspect, notice that the image description is now there. So I haven't even dug that deep with accessibility on here, but definitely for math, one of the first things you'd want to look for is, are the equations accessible? And to do that, to check if any of the equations are accessible, one of the ways is if you right click, it'll talk about math settings and about math jacks if it's an actual equation that can be read by a reader. And also if you were to inspect that element over on the right, you'll see this word math jacks. And so there's this plugin that's working to read this equation. If it hasn't been entered correctly, say it's been used equation editor and it's strictly an image, then MathJax is not going to be able to decipher that, and it would not read as an equation. So this one has formulas, equations that are readable, and it has the images with the image description, at least on the few things I checked. So the point being here is when you're looking through whatever book you're looking for, wherever you go with it, whatever materials you're pulling in, the first step is for math, checking the equations, because if the equations aren't accessible, that's a really big deal. And the second one would be the images. Now, headers and all of that, typically, if the equations and images are accessible, people have done a pretty good job of making the headers and all of that on the pages. And so these are two of the same pieces of content, but represented it in two different ways, one of which is not fully accessible and one of which is. And so when you're using the zero cost textbook, not all of them are created equal, even if they're the exact same book. So I've gone into another example of a book. This is a still statistics book where they've included the equations in the tables to also have this kind of equation numbering system on the right side here. When you right click on the inspect element in this case, it's going to seem like it's not math content. There's nothing in here that MathJax, no MathML on the inspect element. However, this might be, it seems accessible for two reasons. One is because when JAWS did read in it, and this may be the reason I'm not sure is because I'm not a JAWS expert. And so the little bit I know of how to use JAWS, when I use it, it gets stuck in the table and just mentions table, but it does say math content. So I'm missing something maybe in how to access that math content using JAWS when the math is stuck in a table the way they have it here. Again, I think that would emphasize why we don't want to use tables as a formatting tool, which is what I've heard before, but they do in this particular textbook online. The other reason I'm thinking it is accessible is the NVDA reader will read it, except it does mess up. It doesn't say X bar appropriately. And again, NVDA, though, is not necessarily the end-all for screen readers. So this is a case where it could be accessible. It's just possibly more like my user error or lack of knowledge. Hence the reason to have some kind of better support system at the college to where there's some kind of accessibility expert that knows JAWS, that knows how to answer those type of questions, because this could be possibly accessible, and yet we don't know, and so we don't want to go through the work of actually converting all of these equations when in fact they are accessible. So the other thing to mention about these textbooks in something like LibreText, it's editable. I think they call it Remix on like the homepage or something. I'm not very familiar, but people can update these, as you can see, last updated August 10th, 2020, and they can actually change things, correct things, and all of that. So if it's housed in this LibreText, then it has that common editing going on. It's a group effort. I think that's great, but also you have that people could insert videos. What if their videos are not closed captioned correctly? And if you're wanting to tailor it to your own needs, then possibly housing it in a Canvas shell and editing it and keeping it very specific to what you're doing for your department. Any videos you have, are accessible, and everything else is accessible, and then it won't change. So these are the things to look out for when you're looking for the free materials in terms of accessibility. And by no means is it an easy and straightforward task. And it's one we would need support. And this is just for the zero cost. If it's publishers' materials, that's on a whole other level because we can't edit those. And so you'd have to work with publishers if it's a publisher material that we're making students pay for.